Hello, welcome to Round Glass. My name is Alex Maizus, so thank you for joining me today. So today we're exploring session 5 of our series, Mind the Perpetual Storyteller. And in this session, we'll be exploring everything and putting everything together that we've learned in the past 5 sessions. So exploring a little more of a compassionate voice. But I'm curious to know, as we build community together, I'm curious to know where you're joining in from. So I'm in Los Angeles, and so you can put it on the chat, and I'll be reading the chat in just a little bit. But today's session is about discovering the other voices that might be as well supporting in this story. And it's not always the critical voice that comes up, but there might be a voice that might be a little more compassionate. So we're tapping into that. What is behind the narrative of the story and seeing if there is a compassionate side. So we'll be exploring that in our meditation today, as well as we'll be reviewing a little bit of what we did in the past few weeks. So we talked a little bit about the pause in session 1. And pausing is so important when we are confronted in an event, or whether it's a performance that you're doing, whether it's navigating life in general, just taking a pause, tuning into the breath, and then just noticing what is the story that the mind is telling about this moment. And you might notice that we have different stories as we go through life. And so in particularly what we're tuning into is the limiting stories that we tell ourselves. Some stories that are not helpful. So with the pause, we have first of all pausing, and then we have the A. So Pause. The A is for allow. So just allowing the story. We don't really want to suppress it, and we don't want to push it away. We kind of just want to allow it. We kind of want to invite it in so we can get familiar with what it is, bringing a sense of curiosity, bringing a sense of investigation. And then we also have the U for understand. The U in pause is understand. And that means understanding what is the role of this story. And as you practice this more and more to just tuning into the mind's narrative about the moment, you will start to realize, what is it? What are some of these stories doing for you? Why are they even here? And so some stories are here, for instance, to prevent us from feeling the consequences, the aftermath of failing at something, right? And so just really tuning in and noticing, what is the story trying to do for me? But the most important thing is to pause so that we can identify the story. And then we can go to strategizing. So once we're familiar with the story, once you notice a story, what is the strategy that you can come up with to move forward? And in our previous sessions, we talked a little bit about coming into this strategy from a place of our inner strengths. So we'll talk a little more about that too. But just as you take a deep breath, really tuning into some of these trends. And today, we're also going to use, as a way of strategizing, we're going to use compassion. And so we have now pretty much everything in the word pause except for the E. And the E is for expect. And expect is tuning into expecting the best possible outcome, the best scenario. Because the mind is always, when the mind is not helping, this is what we're looking at, the stories that are not helpful. When that happens, we're not really tuning into the moment, we're not tuning into ourselves. And so we're only listening to the voice that is preventing us from failing, preventing us from feeling a certain way. And so this is when we can tune into a different scenario, that seeing what is possible. So by expecting the best, we're opening up to, what are other possibilities that are not here, that I'm not seeing. And so this is when we can actually see see where we are and see how we can move forward. See see how we can learn ways to kind of shift the perception of what we're seeing and how we're interpreting it. And then this way we can go from a limiting story, which we talked about in the previous classes, in the previous series, and in the previous meetings, from a limiting story to a limitless story, which is a self-expanding story. And And as I was saying, this can be done by focusing on your strengths and also by focusing on our other voices. What other voices do we have that are more supportive? The mind tends to just take over sometimes with the limiting stories, but there's always other voices that can come through as well. The more we practice, the more we learn that there's other voices that can rise in the moment as well. So I think a couple of weeks ago, I was telling you the story of me trying to make it to the volleyball team when I was a teenager, and how that kind of um, played into me thinking that maybe it was impossible for me to make it to the team. But my coach bringing up this three things with there were the strengths, which is tune into your strengths because it's not just about being good at something. But then I realized that I had the dedication and the willingness, and I was really motivated to work really hard. And so these were my strengths. That even though maybe I wasn't the best player possible to start off, but these three things carried me over. And so really tuning into that could be really, really important. Um, and then we can do this by really noticing that sometimes we can see the strengths in the people that we admire. So, and as I say that, I am seeing some of you tuning in from Los Angeles and from New York, so I want to welcome you. I'm in Los Angeles myself, and it's really hot right now in Los Angeles this week. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being here. And this allows us to build this community together. So thank you. And so going back to what I was saying about tapping into our strengths, there's something else that we learned, which was how to really keep a positive attitude in life, and that was through gratitude. So being grateful for what's happening, but most importantly is once we tune into the story and once we learn what the story is doing for us, we can actually maybe turn towards gratitude even for the story, and seeing how maybe the story is protecting us from overwhelming feelings. And I think I shared that as well in a previous class, how me thinking that I wasn't good enough at math um, just kind of allowed me to be more in tune to how I felt. And this story was protecting me from actually going up in class and maybe feeling inadequate, feeling like I couldn't really like I couldn't really do the problems in the board. So I stayed in the background because the story was kind of protecting me from really being embarrassed. And so knowing the answers. So we can, once we see that, once we understand what the story is doing, we can actually tap into our feelings and we can have a lot of compassion for ourselves. And so meeting ourselves today, that's the key, meeting ourselves exactly where we are with kindness and compassion. And being able to from there move on to a self-expanding story, move on in our lives towards our goals, but through a point of compassion. And this is really interesting because actually studies show that people who respond to their own setbacks with compassion, rather than beating themselves up about it, have better mental and physical health. Who was going to say, right? I mean, having better mental and physical health through compassion can be just a thing to do. And also, it shows that they become more resilient as well. And resilience is that power that we have to actually bounce back from whatever it is that we consider a failure or a hard time. So, resilience, we're building resilience as we practice compassion. And I think that's just like, it's a superpower. At least that's the way I see it. And so, I think to keep in mind with this idea of compassion, which can be sometimes daunting if we're not used to, giving room to this voice that we have, the compassionate voice, it would be more along the lines when we're encountering a moment that's difficult. What would you say to a friend, right? How would you respond to a friend? And so compassion allows us to to be open to the possibilities, to whatever is possible, to whatever it is that we might be experiencing, and seeing past the limiting story, seeing past the story in it all, in itself. So that being said, that was a little review plus a little bit more about this compassionate way of dealing with our performance, of really encountering our goals and really meeting where we want to go. So I'd like to invite you to just get comfy, however you are. If you're sitting, just get comfortable. And if you're sitting, you don't have to sit like me. You can be sitting on a chair with your feet on the ground, just making sure that your back is straight. Sometimes we tend to slouch a little bit, and this would prevent us from getting airflow. So we want to make sure that the airflow is happening. And you'll see me in some previous videos that I'm actually sitting kneeling. That's another way to do it. I'm sitting on a cushion kneeling or sitting cross legs. But if this is not comfortable for you and you like to lie down or even stand, please do whatever is supportive for your body, whatever is comfortable for you. And so that being said, just giving you a moment to settle in, adjusting your pose. And I'll do the same here a little bit, just making sure that the back is straight, tuning into those areas in the body that are in contact with the surface, holding you. And maybe just taking in a deep breath with me and just breathing in gently and breathing out. And again, you can do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed, whatever works for you. Just tuning into this body here. Allowing it to just really gently, really safely as well, sink into the surface, holding you. Fully supported, cradled by the earth. And noticing how the breath is flowing. There's nothing that you need to do. Maybe just noticing if the breath is fast or maybe slow, maybe steep or maybe shallow. Just paying attention to the body breathing, noticing this expansion of the body on the in breath and contraction on the out breath. And just for a moment, let's hang in here with our breathing. Fully arriving to this moment. And you might notice that the mind tells stories again, even when we're not in the middle of a performance event, even when we're not confronted by any particular event. There's always a narrative, there's always a story. Mind making sense of the moment. So if you find yourself getting caught up in a story, just really gently smiling because you caught yourself. And then just coming right back to this body, breathing, sitting here, lying here. As you do this, just becoming aware of any tension that might be here or any tightness. And just allowing it to soften up. Allowing it to release if that feels so right. Checking in with your jaw where we hold much tension. Shoulders. Just allowing the breath, meanwhile, to flow naturally and normally. And just settling to the moment. Being right here, right now. And now maybe just taking in a deep breath. And as you tune into your breathing, just noticing or bringing into mind a story that might have been playing for you or a story that you constantly encounter in your performance area. It doesn't have to be a big story, it could be just about anything. It could just be I'm not good at typing, or I'm a slow typer. I mean, just all the stories that we make up along the way. Just picking one. Maybe this is a story you've been working with for the last few weeks with us. And then just notice everything about it. Let's get curious about it. So allowing the story to just unfold without getting caught on the narrative or getting taken away, but maybe examining the story. Maybe just bringing a sense of understanding towards it. Noticing if there is an underlying emotion that comes with the story. What is the story doing in this moment? What purpose is it serving? And as you become aware of the purpose of the story, perhaps coming up with a strategy that comes deep from gratitude for whatever it is that's doing for you. Often they're protecting emotion, often fear. So maybe noticing, and then maybe just saying, "Thank you. I got it now." And as you say this, maybe you can tap into this sense of possibility, this expectation for the best. Knowing that you probably have been through a lot more difficult times and you got this. You have the strengths necessary to carry you over. But moreover, just noticing, bringing into mind maybe somebody that you go when you seek counsel, or maybe somebody could be a fictional character that you turn to, or a spiritual character that you turn to when things are difficult. And just becoming aware of this presence. And as you bring up the story to this presence, just tapping into what would they say to you? What are some supportive words that they will use? Tuning into their tone, the words that are used, their overall demeanor, maybe holding you, carrying you in the space through this difficult moment. And noticing how you feel now in their presence. And now from this place, maybe shifting roles and thinking about maybe somebody sharing the same story with you. What would you say back to them? What would be some of your words? How would you hold them in this moment? Just coming up with some phrases, coming back, coming up with some maybe gestures that are supportive. And as you do this and tap into this inner sense of compassion and care, you're just noticing what's here for you right now and maybe offering the same words to yourself. Perhaps a gesture. It could be putting your hand on your chest and saying silently in your own mind these words to you. Or maybe it could just be holding one hand with another or embracing one hand with the other. Whatever works for you. You know yourself best. And so the key is, what would you say to a friend? How would you hold a friend? Whatever comes up is your inner voice, your compassionate voice that's in you as well. So what we're doing is tapping into that inner voice to support you when you need it, so that you can move forward, so that you can perform your best in whatever area of performance that you're practicing, so that it can carry you over in life in the difficult moments. Maybe bringing up a smile to your face. You might notice that when the story is limited, we carry a lot of tension. So noticing that, and now just allowing for this smile to take over, holding yourself in this space. Within deep in yourself, there's gratitude. There's a side that is extremely compassionate. And there are strengths that can carry you over to achieve every goal in life. And it is your practice of mindfulness that allows us to navigate all this with care, with patience, with love. So whenever you're ready, perhaps taking in a deep breath and allowing the body to just move a little bit, introducing a little bit of movement, a nice little stretch, maybe wiggling the toes, maybe twisting the body a little bit if you're sitting, really gently. That's right, just taking your time, just coming back. And as you're taking a deep breath, remembering that at any time you have the capacity for compassion is within you. And so my invitation is that you can remember the acronym of pause all throughout your performance. Pausing, noticing the story, allowing it, understanding, then strategizing from a place of gratitude, compassion, and inner strength to move forward. And then expecting the best, opening up to possibility. So I'd like to thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank you for your time. My name is Alex Maizus. You can follow me on my profile and see when I'm coming on live again. And until then, stay well, stay healthy, and stay present.